Story 1. The calls were coming from the basement. Based on real babysitting cases from the United States. People like to joke about babysitting being easy money. Sit on the couch, eat snacks, make sure the kids don't burn the house down. That's what I thought too, until the night I learned why some babysitters never take late-night jobs again. This happened in the fall of 2009 in a quiet suburban town in northern Illinois, the kind of place where nothing ever makes the news unless someone's dog goes missing. I was 17 at the time, a senior in high school, saving up for college. Babysitting was my main source of income. The Johnson family had hired me before, twice actually. They had 2 kids, Evan, who was 8, and Lily, who was 5. Both were polite, quiet, and easy to manage. The parents were nice, paid well, and always came home on time. That night, Mrs. Johnson called me around 4 p.m. "Would you be able to watch the kids tonight?" she asked. "We'll be gone a bit later than usual, probably past midnight." I hesitated. Midnight was late, but the pay was good, $15 an hour, cash. "Sure," I said. I wish I hadn't. When I arrived at the house at 7 p.m., everything felt normal. The kids were watching cartoons. The house smelled like dinner, mac and cheese, still warm. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson went over the usual rules: no opening the door for anyone, kids in bed by 9, call them if anything felt wrong. One thing stood out though. Before leaving, Mr. Johnson stopped near the basement door. "You won't need to go down there," he said, almost casually. "The furnace has been acting up, so we keep it locked." The basement door had a heavy deadbolt on it. I'd never noticed that before. "Okay," I said, not thinking much of it. They left around 7:30. For the first hour, everything was easy. We played board games, watched a movie, laughed. At 8:45, I sent the kids upstairs to brush their teeth. By 9:15, both were in bed. That's when the house got quiet. Too quiet. I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone. Around 9:40, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it. A minute later, it rang again. I answered. "Hello?" Silence. Then breathing. Slow, deep, right into the phone. "Hello?" I repeated. Click. The call ended. I stared at my screen. My heart was beating faster, but I told myself it was probably a prank call. Kids did that all the time. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same number. This time, a voice spoke. "Did you check on the kids?" My stomach dropped. "Yes," I said. "Who is this?" Silence. Then, "Go look again." The call ended. I stood up immediately and went upstairs. Evan and Lily were asleep, exactly where they should be. I checked the closets, the bathroom, under the beds. Nothing. I locked their doors. When I came back downstairs, my phone rang again. "Why are you calling me?" I demanded. The voice chuckled softly. "I can see you." Every hair on my body stood up. "Where are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. "In the house." I hung up and dialed Mrs. Johnson. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I tried Mr. Johnson. Same thing. That's when I noticed something I hadn't before. The basement door was slightly open, just an inch. I knew it had been locked. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. My phone rang again. "Don't worry, I won't come upstairs." "Please," I whispered, "please leave." "You're doing such a good job, better than the last one." I ran to the kitchen, grabbed the biggest knife I could find, and locked myself in the bathroom. I called 911. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line. Officers were already on the way. While I waited, I heard something. Footsteps, slow, heavy, moving, up the basement stairs.
then stopping right behind the bathroom door. A voice whispered through the wood, "They never hear me come up." I screamed. The police arrived less than 3 minutes later. They broke down the bathroom door. The man was gone, but the basement door was wide open. They found signs someone had been living down there: sleeping bag, empty food containers, a prepaid phone. Later, police told me the truth. The Johnsons had no idea. The man was a former handyman who had worked on the house months earlier. He had secretly made a duplicate key. He'd been living in the basement crawl space watching the family for weeks. And the reason the calls kept coming: the phone he was using was connected to the house's old landline system, routed through the basement. The calls were coming from inside the house. The Johnson family moved out 2 weeks later. I never babysat again.
Story 2. The Man Who Was Already Upstairs. Based on real babysitting incidents reported in the United States. When people talk about home invasions, they imagine broken windows, kicked-in doors, alarms screaming in the night. What they don't talk about is the kind of intruder who never forces their way inside. Because sometimes they're already there. This happened in 2014 in a quiet neighborhood just outside Portland, Oregon. The babysitter involved asked that her real name never be used, so I'll call her Emily. Emily was 19, a college freshman, responsible, careful, not the kind of person who took stupid risks. She had been babysitting since she was 14 and had never had a serious problem until that Friday night. The job was simple: one child, a 6-year-old boy named Noah. Noah's parents were attending a charity event downtown and expected to be gone until around 11:30 p.m. The house was large, modern, and newly renovated, lots of open space, lots of dark corners once the lights went off. Before leaving, Mrs. Carter walked Emily through the house. "You won't need to use the upstairs," she said casually. "That's just bedrooms and storage." Emily nodded. She'd heard that line before. The parents left at 7 p.m. Noah watched cartoons while Emily sat nearby, texting friends. Everything felt calm, normal. At 8:30, Emily put Noah to bed. He hugged her, smiled, and fell asleep almost immediately. That's when the house changed. Emily didn't notice it right away. It was subtle, the way the silence felt heavier, like the house was listening. Around 9 p.m., she heard something upstairs, a soft sound. Not a bang, not a crash, more like a footstep. She froze. The parents said no one would be upstairs. But houses make noises, she told herself. Pipes, wood settling. Still, she locked the living room door. 10 minutes later, it happened again. This time, it was clearer. A slow creak, like someone shifting their weight. Emily stood up and whispered, "Hello?" No answer. She grabbed her phone and checked the time, 9:17 p.m. She considered calling the parents, but didn't want to sound paranoid. At 9:30, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Unknown. Is he asleep? Emily frowned. She replied, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. Good. Her heart began to race. She typed, "Please don't text this number again." 3 dots appeared, then vanished. At 9:42, she heard something unmistakable, a door opening upstairs, slow, deliberate. Emily ran into the kitchen, grabbed a kitchen knife, and moved quietly toward the staircase. She stood at the bottom, staring up into the darkness.
"Mr. Carter?" she called, her voice shaking. No answer. Then a whisper from above. "You shouldn't be standing there." Emily ran back into the living room, locked the door, and called Noah's mom. No answer. She tried the dad. Voicemail. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown. "I told you not to stand under the stairs." Emily screamed. She ran to Noah's room, locked the door, and shoved a dresser against it. Noah woke up crying. "It's okay," she whispered, trying not to panic. "Stay quiet." Footsteps sounded in the hallway outside, slow, dragging, then stopping, right outside the door. A man's voice spoke calmly. "You can unlock it. I just want to talk." Emily called 911. She stayed on the line, whispering while the dispatcher told her officers were on the way. The footsteps moved away. Then, laughter. Soft, almost amused. Minutes later, the sound of the front door opening, then closing. When police arrived, they searched the entire house. They found him, hidden inside a guest room closet upstairs. A man in his late 30s, former construction worker. He had memorized the layout. He knew where the parents would be. He knew when the babysitter would arrive. He had been inside the house before Emily ever walked in. Police later confirmed something that made Emily physically sick. The text messages, they were sent from a phone connected to the home's Wi-Fi. The man had been watching her the entire time, listening, waiting. He told police he just liked watching babysitters. Emily quit babysitting the next day. She still sleeps with the lights on, and to this day, she refuses to enter a house without checking every closet first. Because sometimes the danger doesn't break in. Sometimes it's already upstairs.
Story 3. He told me not to look at the window. Based on real babysitting cases in the United States. There's a moment in some horror stories where the character realizes they've made a mistake, a single decision they wish they could undo. In real life, that moment doesn't come with dramatic music or a warning. It comes quietly, and once it passes, there's no going back. This happened in December of 2016 in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio. The babysitter's name has been changed, but everything else is true. I'll call her Rachel. Rachel was 21, a nursing student, calm, logical, and not easily scared. She had grown up in the area and babysat for dozens of families over the years. She knew the routines, she knew the rules. The Miller family contacted her a few days before Christmas. They had one child, Ava, 4 years old. The parents were attending an overnight work conference in Cleveland and wouldn't be back until the next morning. Rachel would be staying the night. The pay was generous. Rachel arrived at the house just before 6 p.m. The Millers lived in a large, older home surrounded by trees, not isolated but quiet, the kind of house where sound doesn't travel far. Before leaving, Mrs. Miller seemed nervous. She hovered in the doorway, keys in hand. "Make sure the curtains stay closed," she said, "especially the one in Ava's room." Rachel smiled politely. "Of course." Mr. Miller added something else. "If you hear anything outside," he said, "don't look, just call us or call the police." Rachel laughed lightly, assuming he was joking. He wasn't smiling. They left around 6:30 p.m. For the first few hours, everything was fine. Ava played with her toys, watched cartoons, and fell asleep by 8:15. Rachel checked the doors and windows, locked everything, and settled on the couch. Around 9 p.m., she heard it, a soft tapping sound. Not on the door, not on the wall, on glass. She muted the TV and listened. Tap,
Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the front of the house. Rachel stood up slowly. She walked toward the hallway and stopped. The sound was coming from Ava's bedroom window. Her stomach tightened. She remembered Mrs. Miller's words, especially the one in Ava's room. Rachel grabbed her phone and quietly went upstairs. She stood outside Ava's bedroom door, listening. Tap, tap, very gentle, like someone using a fingernail. Rachel reached for the curtain, and then her phone vibrated. A text. Mrs. Miller, please don't open the curtains. Rachel's heart nearly stopped. She typed back with shaking hands. Rachel, there's someone at the window. The reply came immediately. Mrs. Miller, we know. Rachel backed away from the door. She whispered into the phone, what do you mean you know? Mrs. Miller answered this time, her voice trembling. He's been there before. We didn't think he'd come back. The tapping stopped. Rachel held her breath. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Unknown. She's sleeping so nicely. Rachel dropped the phone. She ran into Ava's room, grabbed the child from the bed, and pulled the curtains shut without looking outside. Ava began to cry. It's okay, we're just moving rooms. The tapping started again, this time louder. Rachel ran downstairs, locked herself in the bathroom with Ava, and called 911. While waiting, she heard footsteps on the porch, slow, heavy. Then a voice, calm, friendly. Rachel, the man said through the door, you forgot to say goodnight. Her blood ran cold. How do you know my name? She screamed. He laughed softly. I've been watching you babysit for a long time. Something scraped against the window. Metal. The dispatcher told her officers were on their way. The man began knocking harder, then pounding, then screaming, "Open the door!" Suddenly, silence. Minutes passed. The police arrived and searched the property. They found footprints in the snow leading from the woods to Ava's window. They found fingerprints. They found rope. Later, police explained everything. The man lived nearby, a former neighbor. He had been watching the Millers for months. He knew their schedules. He knew when a babysitter was there. He had stood outside Ava's window on multiple occasions, sometimes while the parents were home. The reason Mrs. Miller warned Rachel not to look was the man liked it when babysitters made eye contact. He was arrested 3 weeks later after attempting to break into another house. Rachel never stayed overnight in a stranger's home again. And to this day, she says the worst part wasn't the tapping. It was the text message, because it meant he wasn't just outside, he was close enough to see her phone light up.